These people were all killed by animals. In 2007, a Komodo dragon killed an 8-year-old boy on Komodo Island. Komodo dragons can grow to a length of 10 feet and weigh up to 365 pounds. The child lived in a small village on the island, and he and his friends were playing around the scrubland. They were not aware that the huge dragon lizard was watching and stalking them. The boy moved away from the group to go to the toilet. This is when the dragon pounced from behind the bush. It grabbed hold of the boy and bit into the middle of his body. As the animal was shaking his body from side to side, the other boys ran screaming to their village to get help. A fisherman was nearby and heard the screams of the boys. He ran towards the dragon, who still had the boy in its mouth. He threw rocks at the animal until it released the child and ran off. But nothing could be done to save the child because he was bitten in half. Attacks on humans are rare, but Komodo dragons have been responsible for several human fatalities in both the wild and in captivity. Between 1974 and 2012 there were 24 reported attacks on humans, with 5 of them fatal. A mother and her 2 children are attacked by a giraffe. A toddler, called Kaya, was trampled to death by a giraffe in South Africa. She was 16 months old. Her mother and brother were also attacked, and were airlifted to hospital in a critical condition. It happened at Kuleni Game Park, in South Africa in 2022. Nicole Panos, 25, and her 2 children were out for a walk in the park, when the family were attacked by the animal. Nicole noticed the charging giraffe coming towards them. She screamed at her 4-year-old son, Caden, to run, and also ran, shielding her daughter in her arms. But the giraffe was too quick and strong, and it knocked her unconscious. When the mother woke up, the baby in her arms was limp. Her son, Caden, was also hurt with skull fractures. She had severe injuries and was in intensive care for 16 days, where she had rib fractures and internal organ damage. It is unusual for giraffes to attack people, and it is common to allow them to roam around in game lodges in South Africa. Nicole Panos was a tour guide and lived at the park with her family. Giraffes are friendly and peaceful animals, and if they are left alone in their natural surroundings, they will not pose a threat to humans. But that day she believes the giraffe thought they were going to hurt her calf. A giraffe kills a cameraman in South Africa in 2018. Carlos Carvalho, 47, was taking close-ups of the giraffe when it suddenly hit him in the head with its neck. The crew was filming at Glen Africa Country Lodge, which is an open wildlife park northwest of Johannesburg. Witnesses said the giraffe was not acting aggressively and they did not sense any danger. Carlos fell to the ground and died that night after being flown to Milpark Hospital in Johannesburg. It looks like it was a tragic accident where the animal was just shaking his neck back and forth. Mr. Carvalho was getting some close-up shots of the animal and got too close. Gustav is a very large man-eating crocodile that lives in Lake Tanganyika in Burundi, Africa. It is reported to have killed over 300 people during the years. There are records of his attacks on villagers dating back to 1987. For decades, Gustav has been involved in a series of attacks on fishermen and villagers. The reason people know it is the same animal responsible for all these attacks is its wounds. There have been many attempts to kill it over the years. He has 3 bullet wounds to his head, and damage to his right shoulder blade. Despite numerous attempts, he has managed to avoid traps. Its size is enormous at over 20 feet long. It weighs approximately 2,000 pounds. Crocodiles can swim and hide underwater for 30 minutes. And when they are resting, they can stay under for up to 2 hours. This is why they are so dangerous to humans, as they can launch unpredictable and sudden attacks. They grab hold of their prey, and roll around in the water until it drowns. Crocodiles are known for having one of the strongest bite forces of any animal. They have a reputation for being extremely aggressive and dangerous to humans. Why did this pet hippo maul his owner to death? The hippo had been raised on a farm by Marius Else since he was 5 months old. For 6 years, the hippo, who he had called Humphrey, lived in a huge enclosure on his 400-acre farm in South Africa. The farmer would play with the hippo, swimming with it and riding on its back. He was told of the dangers of keeping such an animal as a pet by his family and neighbors. But Marius Else insisted that his pet was not dangerous. Marius said, "I call him, and he immediately responds to come and play with me. It's a little bit dangerous, but I trust him with my heart that he will not harm anybody." But in November 2011, Humphrey the hippo bit Marius Else to death. He was found in the water with horrific bite marks and other terrible injuries. Paramedics were called, but by the time they arrived, Marius Else, 40, was dead. Why did the hippo bite this man to death? Because it is a wild animal and that's what they do. Hippos are responsible for about 500 human deaths every year and are the world's deadliest land mammal. The story of how 3 people were attacked and killed by lions. Tourists love to take photos of the wild animals in nature reserves and game parks. The sight of these amazing animals in their natural habitat can make people forget about their own safety. The death of Katherine Chappelle. In 2015, 29-year-old Katherine Chappelle was a graphic effects creator. She had worked on the TV series, Game of Thrones. She was visiting South Africa, and was at a game reserve. She was in a vehicle and being driven around the park, so she could see the lions in their natural habitat. She decided to open the window so that she could lean out to get a better view of the animals, and to take more photos. But suddenly out of nowhere one of the lions jumped up and into the open window. The lion quickly grabbed the woman and bit her on the neck a number of times. Katherine Chappelle was mauled to death in front of other tourists. The death of Alexandra Black. 22-year-old Alexandra Black had just started her dream job at the North Carolina Animal Center in America. That day, she was working with a professionally trained animal keeper, who was supervising the cleaning of the lion's enclosure. The animals had been moved out of that enclosure, and were locked into another part of the area. But somehow one of the lions was able to escape. It quickly ran at the workers and Alexandra was attacked and mauled to death. The death of a 22-year-old woman. This woman was at a game reserve outside Pretoria in South Africa in 2018. She was staying with a friend nearby. She was there to interview the manager of the park. She wandered around the outside of the fenced area, and was taking photos for her article. She noticed a lion running after an antelope in the distance. But as she began to take photos of this, the lion suddenly stopped chasing the animal and charged at her instead. She was attacked by the lion and killed. Why these 2 people were killed by an elephant? Sabine Goossens, 57, had lived in South Africa for 10 years. She had invited one of her friends to come for a vacation. She and her friend, Wim van Griensven, 64, were at the Maramba River Lodge in Livingstone, Zambia. They were enjoying the wildlife and were taking photos of the elephants. They were taken by surprise when they realized one of the animals was getting very close to them. And then suddenly it came running at them very fast, and charged at Sabine Goossens. It is unclear what happened next, but she was being attacked and trampled on. Her friend was shocked by what was happening, and ran to help her. He tried to rescue Sabine from the charging elephant. But he was no match for the huge animal. So they were both trampled to death by the elephant. It is not known why this particular elephant attacked that day. Elephants are generally peaceful and intelligent animals, but there are instances where they may attack humans. Approaching them too closely, sudden movements, or loud noises can startle elephants and they can become very aggressive. A hunter is killed by a buffalo in South Africa in 2018. Claude Kleinhans, 54, was a big game hunter and was in charge of a group of buffalo hunters. They were on an expedition along the banks of the Levubu River in Limpopo, South Africa. They had successfully killed a buffalo, and were getting ready to load the body onto the truck. Everyone was excited about the kill, and they let their guard down. Without warning, another buffalo from the same herd charged at the group. Mr. Kleinhans was struck by the animal's horn in his leg, and it pierced his femoral artery. He bled to death before help could get to him. He became a tour guide in 1987, in Kruger National Park. He was a police officer before creating his own business, Gawela Safaris, and becoming a professional hunter. He also ran fishing and photography tours in the area and the adjoining game reserve. African buffaloes, when agitated or feeling threatened, can be highly protective and may charge unexpectedly. It seems that this is what happened in this case. The African buffalo are believed to kill up to 300 people every year. A couple and their dog were found mauled to death by a grizzly bear. They had been camping in Banff National Park, in Canada. The national park has more than 4 million tourists every year. It has both grizzly and black bears within the park, who roam freely. There are laws that require people to travel in groups of at least 4 people as a safety precaution. They sent out an emergency GPS message to say they had been attacked by a grizzly bear. But it was too late to save them. The couple were found dead, along with their dog. They have not been named, but their families say they were experienced outdoor campers who were always very careful of the wild animals. For more facts about animals, click on the subscribe button.